This study reminded me that following Jesus isn't about pretending I've become perfect. It's about refusing to stop walking with Him. And that's exactly where I want to start today, because that one sentence sums up everything I want to share with you. This past Wednesday, I had the privilege of giving a Bible study. The topic was a phrase that I think most Christians have heard before, words Jesus spoke Himself, which were, "Go and sin no more." And if I'm being honest, before studying it, I thought I already knew exactly what He meant. But after spending time in Scripture preparing for that Wednesday study, I realized there was so much more to those words than I had first imagined. So today, I don't want to preach to you. I simply want to share one lesson that God has been teaching me this week. I think when people hear the phrase, "go and sin no more," they immediately think Jesus is saying, "never make another mistake again." Almost like the Christian life is about becoming instantly perfect the moment you meet Him. But then I started asking myself a question. If that's really what Jesus meant, why does the Apostle John later write, "If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves," which we read in 1 John chapter 1 verse 8. And why does Paul openly talk about his own struggle with doing the things he doesn't want to do, which we read of in Romans chapter 7? The more I looked into it, the more I realized something. Jesus isn't calling us to instant perfection. He's calling us to a new direction. That one realization changed the way I read those verses. Think about the woman caught in adultery that we read of in John chapter 8. Everyone around her wanted to condemn her. They were ready to stone her actually. That's how serious the moment was. Jesus didn't ignore her sin. He didn't pretend it hadn't happened. But he also didn't begin with condemnation. He first said, "Neither do I condemn thee." And only then did he say, "Go and sin no more." And that order matters more than we usually give it credit for. Grace came before the command. Forgiveness came after transformation. Jesus wasn't saying, "Change yourself and then I'll accept you." He was saying, "I've shown you mercy. Now let that mercy change the way you live." The same pattern happens with the man Jesus healed at the pool of Bethesda, which we read of in John chapter 5. This was a man who had been sick for 38 years. Jesus healed him first, no conditions attached. Then later he found him in the temple and said, "Go and sin no more." Again, grace first, transformation second. That really challenged me while I was preparing the study, because sometimes I think we can accidentally reverse the order without even realizing it. We think, if I can just become good enough, maybe God will accept me. But the gospel says the opposite. God reaches out to us first, then He begins changing us. We don't clean ourselves up to come to Him. We come to Him and He starts to clean us up. One thing that stood out to me while preparing the study was this. I don't think Jesus was warning people about occasionally stumbling. I think He was warning them about becoming comfortable with sin. And there's a real difference between those two things. Every Christian struggles, every Christian fails. I've had moments in my own life where I've had to admit, "Lord, I missed the mark." That's not unique to me. That's just what it means to be human and still growing. But there's a big difference between someone who falls and wants to get back up and someone who decides they're comfortable staying on the ground. One is struggling, the other has settled. And I think Jesus is calling us to never settle. As someone who trains and plays rugby, this actually made me think about discipline too. If I miss one training session, that doesn't make me someone who has quit rugby. It just means I missed a session. But if I stop caring, if I stop showing up, if I stop wanting to improve, then something more serious has happened. My direction has changed. I think the Christian life works the same way. God isn't asking me to never stumble. Nobody plays a perfect game and nobody lives a perfect life. He's asking me to keep moving towards Him even after the stumble, especially after the stumble. There's another thought that really stayed with me from that Wednesday study. We don't obey God because we're trying to earn His love. We obey because we have already received it. Let me say that again. We don't obey God because we're trying to earn His love. We obey because we've already received it. I think that's a huge difference, and it changes the whole motive behind obedience. Imagine someone rescues you from drowning. Would your first response be to jump straight back into the water? Of course not. And not because you're trying to earn the rescuer's approval either. It's because you appreciate what they have done for you, and that appreciation changes how you move from that point on. That's how I've come to see God's grace this week. Grace isn't permission to stay where I am. Grace is the reason I want to keep growing. If I had to summarize everything I learned this week into one sentence, it would be this. Jesus wasn't asking for perfection. He was asking for direction. Are we moving towards Him? When we fail, do we run back to Him? Or do we get comfortable staying where we are? That's the question this study left me with. And honestly, it's a question I'm still asking myself, even as I sit here sharing it with you. So if you're listening today and you've been discouraged because you feel like you failed God, remember this. Jesus began with, "Neither do I condemn thee." But if you've been using God's grace as an excuse to stop sinning, remember He also said, "Go and sin no more." Those two statements belong together. Grace gives us hope. Obedience gives us direction. And I think that's the beauty of following Christ. Not that we've arrived, but that every single day He continues to shape us into the people He's calling us to become. And that's today's note. My name is Lucky Mutsipe, and this has been Notes from the Journey, simply sharing the lessons I learn as I walk with Christ. If this note encouraged you today and you think someone else might benefit from it, consider subscribing and sharing it with them. Till the next note, God bless.